1941. This is a sign of the evacuation sale at our store in San Francisco, the Nichibei Busan. And here, one of our store staff person is leaving for the so-called white zone. They were permitted to leave to the white zone without going into camp. Of course, and some of the other staff members of the store. And now we're here at the Topaz, Utah WRA Relocation Center in the desert of Utah. And this is the 1943 Rambling Senior Journal of the high school in Topaz, the cover. And now this is the dusty and arid desert of Topaz, Utah, 156 miles south of Salt Lake City, in the severe desert. And here you see some of the buildings and the distance, and rows of barracks. This is a scene of the dry goods store in Block 12 in the Topaz camp. A regular army barrack used as a dry goods store. And these are shots of other barracks in camp. Back again to the dry goods store. We had a staff of 17 young ladies and 4 men, who you will see very shortly. The Topaz Co-op t-shirt that we had. And some of the members of the co-op office staff. Another young man from our co-op office staff. And here are some of the customers leaving the dry goods store in Block 12. And here is the picture of the staff, 17 young ladies and 4 men who staffed the Topaz Consumer Cooperative Dry Goods Store. December 1943, and this is a picture of the sunrise and not a sunset. We had beautiful sunrise and sunset in the desert. And here are some of the members of the co-op warehouse group. And now you see the typical block with the latrine, the laundry, and the 12 barracks on either side, or 12 barracks. And in the center was the laundry, the latrine, and the dining hall, or the mess hall, as you might call it. This is a couple who met in camp and were married. They now live in Berkeley, California. Bill, Fujita, and Dorothy. And this little young man, Dickie, Dickie Taney, and Dad, Henry Taney, who was quite a Stanford graduate, very active in the educational field. One of the ladies working at the mess hall, and his Mrs. Rosie Taney. Rosie now lives in Lombard, Illinois. And Dickie, of course, now is what, almost 50 years old? And this is an interesting shot of the Co-op dry goods store. All the people heard that we had some very difficult to get merchandise on our buying trip back east, and they're all waiting for the store to open so that they can get their hand on some of the hard to get merchandise. It is not a sale. A shot of the Topaz Protestant Sunday School in Block Dining Hall 32, a promotion Sunday. Church services were held every Sunday among the Protestants, the Buddhists, and the Protestants held theirs in Dining Hall 32, in Block 32. Reverend Skamoto, Joseph Skamoto, one of the church pastors. Reverend Shimada, and in the distance is Reverend Nugent, and Roscoe Bell, who was a vice project administrator, who came to church regularly. A group picture was taken of the church group that morning. This is the picture of a group of people who came on the exchange from Tule Lake, and some of those who left Topaz went to Tule Lake, and those that declared their loyalty came to Topaz. The assistant block manager, this is a shot of the evacuees doing a volunteer work of repairing the pipes which broke. They had used such poor material that the pipes used to break, and we had a volunteer work crew repair the pipes, and that's what they're doing. It's not a chain gang. This is in Block 41, our block. If we didn't have anything else, we had the beauty of the sunsets in the desert of Utah and Topaz, even behind the barbed wires. This picture was taken during the preaching mission by E. Stanley Jones, the famous preacher who went a missionary to India. And E. Stanley Jones is on the right. And Dr. John Skoglund of Berkeley Baptist Divinity School is on the left. And this is Reverend Shimada. E. Stanley Jones wrote the famous book, The Christ of the American Road. He said the Japanese Americans are not a problem, they are possibilities. And this is a shot of one of the administrator and his wife. And these two girls they're of Japanese and Italian ancestry. And if you had 1/8 Japanese blood, you had to go to camp. Some of the evacuees cleaning the chimneys in the mess hall. And a shot of the high school auditorium built by the evacuees. And the building immediately in front of us was used by the co-op for showing movies. And now we're leaving Topaz with Reverend Nugent taking a group of high school young people to speak at churches in Salt Lake City. And there is the hospital building, the tall smokestack. Mount Swayze is in the background. And there you have the trademark of Topaz, the water tank. And now we're in Delta, a town 16 miles away, where Reverend Nugent and his wife lived and ministered to the people in Topaz. And here are some of the young people we took to Salt Lake City. And Reverend Nugent's son there, Reverend Nugent is there, and Mrs. Nugent, and some of the young people. Reverend Nugent was a missionary to Japan. This is the Delta train station where the evacuee trains first arrived. And the town of Delta, 2-3 blocks long. The Southern Hotel had the best steak dinner for $1. And now you see some of the 1942 model cars. We're driving to Salt Lake City. And this is a shot of the beautiful Wasatch Range of Utah. These 5 people, young people, left Topaz and worked on a farm in Utah for 1 year. And they had no previous experience, as they were all San Francisco boys. But they went to Utah farmers and asked them, we know how to do it in California, how do you do it here in Utah? And they learned how to farm. And they came out with a profit of $1,000 apiece. Now we're entering Salt Lake City. And the Salt Lake City City Hall. and Japantown in Salt Lake City, a block long. And the Mormon Temple. Only Mormons can enter the temple. And I'm right there with a little box. I had my camera hidden in that little box, a shoe box. And this is the temple square and the famous Mormon tabernacle. With not even a nail used, but only wooden pegs. The acoustics is so good that you could hear a pin drop. And again, the Mormon temple. And on the very top you see the gold statue of the angel Moroni. And Reverend Nugent and one of the students looking at the pioneer cabin on the temple ground. Angel Moroni on top in gold. And Hotel Utah across the street. Evacuees were not permitted to stay there during the war. And you see the state capital of Utah on the hill. Now, Thanksgiving 1943. This is the mess hall. It says for Block 41 residents only. And this is the mess hall staff, the crew. And the call to dinner. The block manager and his assistant. And the kitchen waitresses. And one of the young ladies, high school student, later her daughter became a Miss San Francisco and went to Japan. And we have some snow in Topaz. Not too often, but we did have some snow, and it became very cold. Early in the morning, and a snowing morning. And now we're having the traditional Japanese mochitsuki, the making of mochi cakes. The sweet rice is steamed first and then pounded by the mallet and then formed into little cakes. Now they've just put in the hot rice, the sweet rice, and the pounding is done. However, those two ladies are just posing. It was done mostly by the men. They didn't have women's lib in those days, but it sure looks like it, doesn't it? And that's the way it's pounded. And then it's brought in and cut into little cakes, and there they are. And it's usually eaten in soups, or quite often with some soft beans. This is a New Year's card produced by my brother-in-law, who was an architect. Topaz 44. See the barbed wire, the barracks, the watchtower. And this is the young man, Lee Mullis, who sent the camera in, who had my camera, and who sent it in from Oakland. He visited us at Christmas. And some of the staff members of the WRA, Miss Eleanor Gerard, who taught in the high school, and later married Emil Sakarak, Dr. Oscar Hoffman, community analyst. A wintry day in the desert of Utah, Topaz. My brother-in-law pulling little David Fujita and Sheldon, our son. And here's a shot of Bill Fujita leaving on relocation to Philadelphia, or for Philadelphia. Emil Sakarak and Eleanor Gerard, they were later married. He was with the administration and with the co-op. And Tad Fujita pulling in the snow, his son David. And Topaz snowbound. You can see how cold it was in Topaz, and all we had were the Army potbelly stoves. Most of the people who were in Topaz were from the Bay Area, so they were not quite used to the weather. This is my father sweeping, and you know the East say the older generation like to keep things clean. So there he is sweeping away. Some winter scenes. You see, my father is still sweeping. My father is taking our son Sheldon for a walk. Granddad and grandson. Dawn and Topaz. This is the hospital building, the tall smokestack, and the landmark water tower, and the pile of coal in the foreground next to the mess hall. And this is a group visiting the Topaz Hospital. We had a community conference, and they are taking some of the people on a visit of Topaz. And you see the building in white, or buildings in white, the administration building. And the Topaz post office. Topaz Community Conference, adventuring into a new world pattern. We had a conference for young people. And during that conference, we took some of the people up to see the swines. And here they are. Most of the evacuees never got to see these swines because they were separated far from camp. Dr. John Embry from the University of Chicago, who came to help us at our conference. And Mas Sato of the JCL in the center, Esther Briesmeister from the YWCA, and Dr. Floyd Sampson from the University of Denver School of Religion, who came to help us. Then I got on top of the roof to take a shot of the sea of roofs. And as you look at this picture, you will realize what a waste it was for the government to spend $300 million building 10 camps like this at $1942. And then we let the water out one night and made this ice rink. However, no one had skates. This young lady is the only one that had skates. You see the barbed wire, the guardhouse in the distance on the right. And this is a shot of an evacuee family. The young man later graduated from the University of California and became an architect. And for Boys Festival, they were so proud of their son that they flew the traditional cops. And this picture shows my wife's dad, and this is the University of Utah blanket given to my brother, who's in the picture there on the right, who's on the University of Utah National Championship basketball team. Wat Misaka, the Utah young man from Ogden, is on the left, and he was number 5 man. My brother was number 9 man, but since he was not a Utah, they wouldn't take him to Madison Square Garden. They took the number 10 man. But however, they gave him a blanket. Anyway. University of Utah beat Madison Square Garden, in Madison Square Garden, beat St. John's University. My wife's dad, and here they're trying to figure out how to fold that blanket. Let's see, is it this way or that way? And here we have the dust storm. This was taken on a warm Sunday afternoon, and everyone had to keep their windows closed, shut tight. And it was very hot, no air conditioning, and the wind blew and the dust blew, and the dust would come inside the cracks in the windows and the doors. Hot, dry, and dusty, and this is the way the ground looked. Very arid. And it blew and blew. And you stay cooped up inside your barrack. And through the dust you could see one of the commissary trucks delivering food to the mess halls. This is a shot hanging up diapers in camp. No laundries. This was taken inside a classroom. The light, naturally the film was at that time not very good, and the light was very poor. But I'm teaching publishing to a group of high school seniors, and I taught five classes of high school seniors public speaking. And this was my smallest class. The largest class had 36 young people. A picture of the Topaz High Y Club of the YMCA we formed in camp. The interesting thing about this picture is that in spite of the fact that they're in the middle of the desert, they're all dressed up in their sport coat with ties, shirt and ties. Quite a contrast from the way they dress today. And right on the very right-hand side is Emil Sakarak, who was advisor to the club. Was also worked with the co-op group. We have now announced that the coast is reopened to the evacuees from the 15th of 1945. And so this is the relocation or leave taking of the evacuees going back to their homes. And naturally those who had homes to go back to were the first ones who were able to leave Topaz, and they're leaving Topaz in this fashion. And the people are there to see them off, going home. They get on the bus for the 16-mile trip to the town Delta. And after they leave, all the people who are left behind, they feel quite forlorn and they have to go back to their barracks. When will they be allowed to leave, or when can they leave? Where can they go to? Roscoe Bell and Ms. Gladys Bell the assistant project director and his wife. Very fine people who are loved by the evacuees. And Mrs. Laura Merrill, a native Utah who came to help as a librarian in Topaz. My sister and her friend, and the dog Tippy. And our daughter Arlene, born in Topaz, now 6 months old. And then my brother, Tut, came into camp to visit us. And the sad part is that wearing his U.S. Army uniform, he had to come through the Army guards to come to visit his family. He was on his way to Germany to replace the 442 combat team, but the war ended, so he went to Japan with the Counterintelligence Corps. The Protestant church and the high school gymnasium. And now we're leaving camp. We had a friend in Delta who had a car. So he offered to take us to our train. So we're on his car, leaving Topaz, and we thought for the last time. Never thinking that we would go back there in another 10 years. We thought this was the last sight of the jewel of the desert, Topaz. And the last shot of Mount Swayze in the distance. And now we're nearing Delta, over the overpass. And as we neared the town, we see a drugstore on the left-hand side where we stopped to get some ice cream, and we almost missed our train. And the only thing that got on was a bag of diapers. And some Mormon friends, who came to greet us at the station in Salt Lake City. And some friends in Salt Lake City. This is Ogden, Utah, the next day, on the way back. We're crossing the Great Salt Lake. My father is eating some osushi that Mrs. Suyuki of Salt Lake City made for us, and we never forgot that osushi. It was the first osushi that we had in 3 years. Now the desert of Utah. Our son Rod, 8 months old. No, I'm sorry, 2 years old. And our son Sheldon, 4. And now the California desert and the Nevada desert. And the last night on the train, near Sacramento. And now at the ferry building, where some friends greeted us, back to San Francisco. And now we're going down on the car, down Japantown, Post Street, and stopped in front of our home, which we left in April of 1942. And this is May the 5th of 1945, 3 years. And now, 10 years later, in August of 1955, we went back to Utah, to Delta. The same drugstore on the corner. And the town has grown up. They have a drive-in movie now, and then back to the desert of Topaz, Utah, the way it looks today, or 10 years later. We got there rather late in the afternoon. This is the way Topaz looks, or looked in 1955. We returned there on October the 1st of 1985, 30 years later, and it looked just about. The laundry folder where I used to wash the diapers in Block 41. And the baseball backstop in 41 with the tumbleweed caught in it. And our mess hall, with the trees growing through the cracks in the cement. Nothing. Memories. This is 41. In this hall floor, the account is still there. Now it's and our daughter Arlene, who was a little baby there 10 years before, now 10 years old. kindly say farewell to us the beautiful Topaz sunset. Farewell, Topaz. Farewell. Thank God that it's all over.
Topaz, 1942 to 1946. Central Utah WRA Relocation Center. 15 miles west at Abraham is the location of the bleak desert site of a concentration camp, one of 10 in Western America, in which 110,000 persons of Japanese ancestry were interned against their will during World War II. They were the victims of wartime hysteria, racial animosity, and economic opportunism on the West Coast. Confined behind barbed wire fence and guarded by armed sentries and held for no justifiable reason, the internees, two-thirds of whom were American citizens, and the majority of whom were women and children, not only endured the bitter physical distance of the desert heat and cold, but sustained a shocking affront to their sense of justice and fair play and human dignity. May this grim episode of basic American principles gone astray remind us to work for understanding and goodwill and justice in an enlightened America today. The former residents of Topaz remember with full appreciation the friendliness and understanding with which the people of Delta received us during the period of our trial and despair.
Topaz, 1942 to 1946, Central Utah WRA Relocation Center, dedicated to the 200th anniversary of the United States of America and sponsored by the Utah American Revolution Bicentennial Commission and the Tri-Chapters Japanese American Citizens League. Supported by the Californian residents once interned at Topaz, the sponsors have erected markers in memory of those who endured hardships there. The land was donated by the Lewis B. Ellsworth family of Globe, Arizona. Committee: Frank Kimura, Chairman; Yuku Sinoue, Alice Kasai, Ted Nagata, Sami Tadehara, Shigeki Ushio, and Sadie T. Yoshimura, Carl Inoue, and Taka Kida.
Topaz, 1942 to 1946. Site of Topaz, a World War II internment center. In the never-ending struggle for human dignity, there was enacted on this spot an event of historic significance for a nation and its people. During World War II, this was the site of an internment camp, complete with barbed wire fence and armed sentries, for 8,000 of the 110,000 Americans of Japanese ancestry who, for no justifiable reason, were uprooted from their homes and interned by their own government. They were victims of a wartime hysteria, racial animosity, and a serious aberration of American jurisprudence. that a nation dedicated to the principle of individual freedom and justice through law would, under the stress of war, allow this to happen, and then, recognizing the injustice of this action, hasten to soften the effect of action and make restitution. And that a whole generation of people whose life and spirit was shattered and marred would, with a courage and hope and perseverance, fight back to reestablish themselves in the American stream of life, and were successful, are facts of sufficient historic importance to be remembered forever. So in this bicentennial year, 1976, we dedicate this site as a reminder that the lessons of history need always be heeded in forging a more perfect form of human relationship.
It's still one of the most beautiful spots in San Francisco, a place we like to show off to visitors. The Japanese Tea Garden in Golden Gate Park. But to many San Franciscans, this place is a reminder of the dark side of World War II, the side that revealed the worst of our prejudices. This tea garden was designed in 1894 by an Australian, but it was tended by a young Japanese gardener, Mikoto Hajiwara. He treated the garden like one of his own children, and in large measure, it was his creation. He even lived here with his family in a small apartment above the gift shop. That fine tradition ended one April day in 1942 when notices like this one were posted all over the city.
All persons of Japanese ancestry, both alien and non-alien, will be evacuated from the above the area by 12 o'clock noon, 6 days hence.
Altogether, 120,000 Japanese aliens and American citizens with Japanese faces were removed from their homes in California, Oregon, and Washington. 18,000 were from the Bay Area. Dave Tatsuno had just started taking home movies when the evacuation order came. Tatsuno managed to smuggle his camera and film into the internment camp at Topaz, Utah, where he and his family were eventually taken. One of 10 such camps scattered all over the West. It was as desolate a place as you can imagine.
In order to construct all these barracks, these camps, you had to grade it, and that topaz dust was all over the place. And I still remember it felt like going into an area with face powder flying around all over. It was really dusty. We had to stay cooped up in that barrack with all the windows closed tight, and yet the dust would still come through and just stew in that barrack.
Camp officials tried to create a semblance of ordinary life. Children went to school, adults all had jobs. Young men here even joined the army. They fought in Italy and Germany in the 442nd, the most decorated unit in American military history. On leave, these courageous Americans visited their mothers and wives and children like any soldiers, but they visited them behind barbed wires. It seems incredible today, but most of the internees endured insult on top of injury without protest or complaint. But a few, like Morgan Yamanaka, refused to take a loyalty oath and renounced their citizenship.
As I talk with some of my GI friends from 442nd, they're proud of those 4 years, having served the government. Their country. I can't say I'm proud of those 4 years. I'm ashamed for my own country of doing that to me. And I'm ashamed for myself, so to say, for those 4 years wasted.
The main thing, I think, was the feeling of that America had turned its back on us. It was a psychological feeling, not more than the physical feeling. I think it was a psychological feeling of feeling that America had, after we had spent all the years in trying to be good citizens, suddenly, because of our Japanese ancestry, because of our Japanese faces, were put into camp, whereas the Germans and the Italians were not.
essentially 5 years was lost. And it was lost in the most meaningless way.
Takes a look at the past and also the present.
There were moments of laughter on this trip down memory lane. It was a reunion for those Japanese Americans who lived in Japantown before World War II. But along with the laughter came pain at the memories of what happened to them when the United States went to war.
After Pearl Harbor, naturally, we were Americans with Japanese faces, so you could imagine we were really under the gun.
Dave Tatsuno grew up in Japantown. His father owned a business there, but in 1942 his family was sent to an internment camp in Utah.
We never knew when the order was coming because of the sudden order, and so we closed our store on April the 7th, and we were not evacuated till May the 10th. So for 1 month we were in our home. We had orange boxes, orange crates, and for chairs and things of that sort.
These are the tags he and his family wore when they were sent to the Tanforan racetrack, where they lived for 5 months before going to the internment camp. His family made up a list of what to bring.
Dave's list. Can you imagine? So you could only take what you could carry, by the way.
Tatsuno and his wife had 2 children while interned. They moved back to Japantown in 1945. Dave Tatsuno still has ties to Japantown. This is his store, located at Japantown's outside mall. More than 50 years ago, his father owned a store a block away from here, and the family home was where the pagoda now stands. Many of the people at today's reunion returned to Japantown after spending time in the internment camps.
How does one explain it? I guess we went through this concentration camp process because we wanted to prove ourselves that we were indeed loyal American citizens.
As these people looked back, they said they're proud of their heritage. In San Francisco, Laura Marquez.
Well, we're now going to attend the final Topaz reunion, the 50th anniversary for Topaz at the Hyatt Regency in Burlingame. And it's a beautiful, beautiful day. Slug Ota. Good. Good to see you, Slug.
Yeah, nice seeing you.
You're looking good after 4 years.
Well, feel
good. Machko. This is Machko.
For posterity's sake.
Big Kamiya is right here. Big. Old friend Isamu.
All right.
Gengo.
And how?
Well, here's Hugo Casato, all the way from Fresno.
Okay.
May Casato, May Toda Casato. T. Yoshiwara from Alameda. They're all waiting for the registration to begin right now. Jimmy Kajiwara, right there, Jimmy. Yoshi Kimoto, right here. Yoshi. Registration. Just beginning. Shimomura.
Oh, you got it.
Grace. She's the one that was in my 1939 Japan Day Parade movie from Salt Lake City. You right here. Yatabe, right here. Yamamura.
Well, you sit where
Joe Morey, right over there, Joe. Hey, Dr. Hada. San Kitashima, right?
Right.
Mid Saito, from San Mateo, Mid Saito. Also from San Mateo, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Registration, just starting. Kazuyohashi.
4 hours of it. 4 hours.
And your husband is over there. Hey, Hoshiyama. Hi, Fred. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome to Northern California.
Thank you very much.
This is Deki Nakazawa Seto from Sacramento, right?
Hi, yes.
There's John Yoshino and Mary Louise from Washington all the way. Hi. Bill Sakai, good old friend. Dr. Joe Goodman from Topaz High School. Hi, Joe Inatome, right here.
With Dr. Goodman.
It's way on the other side.
Utah, in charge of helping out with the schools there and the history of Topaz. Glad to meet you, Jane.
Nice to meet you.
Youngest of, let's see, Bob and Sadao Kiyasu, William Kiyasu.
Yeah, take a picture.
Yeah, good, very good. Tak Momi, right over here, great.
Hi, David.
This is the historical display room.
You're gonna bust the lens. Hi, Dave.
Kaku?
Yeah, Art Kaku
Art
from
Kaku.
Seattle.
Seattle now, huh?
Yeah.
Even if I stand at an angle? This is, yeah. This is somebody's present. Was it recently then? Together? We close the door. You have to get ready for the
Yoshi and David Fujita.
See, I remember her name too now. What was it? Shura Obata's drawing. Ben Oshita and Grace Fujimoto Oshita from Salt Lake City, the young lady who was in my Japan Day Parade movie back in 1939. Who's the little boy? Is that
That's my son. Yeah, your Matsuko Kawasaki's granddaughter?
Yeah.
I see. So let's see, let's see, how would that be?
We'll just put it together. This is all the good having a good shake.
I only got two. Oh, I got
Yeah, you. What is she doing? She didn't see.
Here's a sweetie.
I guess she has some.
Hi. Nice to see you. Came in the airport and retired from the airport.
Yeah.
They didn't expect us. Well, they did. We told them.
You were?
But you have only medium in this.
Yeah.
Good job now.
Administrators of the camp.
Pretty well to get to know you.
It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, sure.
Where there can be some intergenerational discussion around experiences that people have had in camp, particularly from big crowd.
Please don't be afraid.
With pigtails, Ishimoto's, I used to go to Ishimoto.
As a rule, the one that
Tag with you?